Hello and welcome to this review video for the International Racing League of the action of the last weekend. Today I'll be reviewing the GT Sport race around Suzuka and the F1 race around Australia. So we'll start off with the GT Sport race, and here's an onboard view from Kamikaze Fox. There's absolute chaos going into turn 1. Pole sitter Luke Smith lost it on the apex of turn 1, spinning back into the field, sending Jeremy Pope around, which ultimately led to a chain reaction. Kamikaze Fox, Cameron Edwards coming worse after dropping into the back, but they had a nice little battle later on in the race. Here's the most nail-biting moments of that. Good battle between these two, but a pretty stagnant race. In the end, it went to Jeremy Pope, as we can see. Kamikaze Fox, Luke's Cameron Edwards, and Doc Holliday getting a bit close there. But Jeremy Pope won the race to really close the gap to Luke Smith in the championship after a bit of team orders at BMW Monster. Killer KD allowing his teammate through. Him, of course, fighting for the championship. Luke Smith had a dismal race, finishing in third after numerous spins. Matthew Alder in fourth, ahead of Philip Blum, who had a disappointing performance in fifth, then Doc Holliday and Kamikaze Fox. So there are the drivers, constructors and Nations Cup. Luke Smith now just 4 points ahead of Jeremy Pope with 2 rounds to go. Philip Blum still in contention, 13 points. Doc Holliday, Chris Ryan, fourth and fifth. Then a bit of a gap to Lewis Bish, Killer KD, Kamikaze Fox, Cameron Edwards, Matthew Alder, XX Rambo, Fly Soup, Johnny Carrington, Apollo, Louis Quinlan, Ben Carrington and Tyler Ricks. And in the constructors, Nestle Racing have now got a 25-point lead over Monster in second, Chrysos in third, Comfox, Ferrari, and Duke fourth, fifth, sixth, and then you saw the others. So now moving on to the F1 race, a very wet start. First time we've seen the full wets this year. A couple of jump starts, the lights held for a very long time. Matthew Walden made a brilliant start after getting a 7th consecutive pole position. He led away from Francis McGinn, Sebastian Goncalves in third. Championship points leader Felix Negua made a pretty poor start, but was just about able to hold on to fourth. But you can just see the terrible visibility from the full wets, which were early on in the race before the rain lightened up pretty quickly. Matthew Alder led the entire race pretty much. But as you can see there's Dante Thompson pulling a Gerhard Berger out of the pits when he tried to go onto slicks, maybe a bit too early, completely lost it into the inside wall. But there was a really interesting finish to the race because the drivers had to pit for inters around about lap 5 or 6, and despite the fact that it was inters weather pretty much all the way through up until about lap 27, most of the runners were unable to keep their inters all the way through to the end and pitted for dries. That was a mistake because the dries were a lot slower as the track did not dry up as quickly as many as expected. Felix Negua pulled what seemed to be a brilliant strategy, staying on the inters all the way through to what would have been some good damage limitation to his main championship rival Matthew Alder, who was 10 seconds up the road. However, as you can see, a bit of deja vu from Hungary, McLaren getting in the way, but Felix Negua in Sector 3 on the penultimate lap picked up a puncture in his intermediate, having pushed him just slightly too hard, dropping him back down to what would eventually be 4th position, losing 13 points to Matthew Alder in the Drivers' Championship instead of what would have just been 7. But Matthew Alder won the race, making it his 4th victory in 5 races. Finishing second was the surprised Gabriel Ryan, and even more surprised Reese Bibby picked up his first career podium with a brilliant drive from third. You can see them on the podium there. 4th went to Felix Negua after that late pit stop ahead of Jorge Carrera. Another stellar performance from him. Francis McGinn finishing in 6th. But now let's move on to the driver's standings, which you'll see in a minute. Felix Negua, that should say 170.5, now just 9.5 points ahead of Matthew Alder. Those two seem to have the championship to themselves, with Cameron Edwards and Brandon Glover falling away. Then Stefan Prodnov, Francis McGinn, Lewis Marshall, Goncalves, Smith, Quinlan, Sorhaug, followed by Carrera, Siktu, McLean, Dangle, there in the top 15, and Reese Bibby and Gabriel Ryan both taking big steps out of the relegation zone in the constructors. Sauber leading by 26.5 points from Renault, Mercedes, Ferrari, Haas, Toro Rosso, Red Bull, Williams, Force India and McLaren rounding out the top 10, capping off their disappointing season with just a mere 11 points. But moving on to the next races in GT Sport, in what we expect to be just a week time, we'll be going for the 40 minutes of Bathurst, and in the F1 in 2 weeks we'll be at Monza, so be sure to catch us then.